Greetings, everyone. Welcome to COS Today. My name's Dale Parrish. I'm the host for COS Today, along with my co-host, Mr. Ken Koshuba.
Good evening, Dale.
Hello, Ken. Ken is the Indiana State Communications Coordinator. So Ken's been with me quite a while here now. So, yep, Ken and I, the purpose of COS Today is we're trying to save the country with Convention of States. Save the country with Convention of States. So, how do you think we're doing, Ken? You think we're doing a pretty good job?
It's a pretty big chore. I think we might have to join the tour with President Trump to get our word around a little bit, and sure would be nice if he came on and supported us.
Wouldn't it be nice? Yeah, that would be nice.
Make our jobs a whole lot easier, Dale.
We're trying as an organization. We're trying awful hard to get him to come on and say that. Sending him a letter and everything. Well, listen. Before we get started, let's let our buddy Maringo Mike kind of give everybody a little reminder here. Okay.
In the program, please be sure and hit the like and subscribe buttons along with the notifications bell so you'll always know when we go live. We appreciate your support and hope you'll join us on our mission to use the Constitution to save the Constitution. Now, back to the program.
Yeah.
Hit those like and follow buttons. Yeah, hit those like and follow buttons.
That's right. Well, folks, let's get right to it. This will be our first segment for the evening, and we call this segment the In Focus segment. And we bring on 2 or 3 more guests to join Ken and I, and we talk about talk about what's on our mind right now, what's got our interest. And let me start with this young man, Mr. Jonathan Bontrager. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, Dale. How are you?
Good. Glad you could join us tonight.
Glad to be here.
Good. Jonathan is with Turning Point. We've been dying to get him on here. And Convention of States as an organization is very interested in working with Turning Point. So, Jonathan, very briefly, your job in Indiana is?
I am the senior college field representative for the Hoosier Territory. So I oversee all of the student-led college chapters in Indiana.
All right, cool. Well, we'll have a lot to talk to him about, that's for sure. Now, our next gentleman is Mr. Michael Mercier.
Mercier, yep.
Mercier is fine.
I think we have to give Dale a British accent. That way he can get away with anything,
It doesn't matter, really.
I don't think I've ever pronounced Michael's name correctly, so I apologize.
Michael, don't feel bad. It took him 2 years to get my name straightened out.
And Michael is president of Screen Education. Is that right, Michael?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So both Michael and Jonathan will be joining us after this segment to do some presentations for us. So we will be with them quite a bit this evening. And our last guest is this young man from the state of Idaho, Cordell Rich. Cordell is the Idaho State Veterans Coalition Director. And Cordell, I assume you are retired military. Am I correct?
Yes, retired 23 years in the Army, and then I did anti and counterterrorism for a number of years with the intelligence services as well.
Oh, okay, all right, good. In the Army, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I spent a couple years in the Army way back in the '60s, long time ago. But
what did you do? What branch?
I was I was in a Signal Corps battalion. I ended up being the intelligence NCO for the battalion. Wasn't trained to do that, but long story on how that came about. But yeah, I was the intelligence NCO, and it's a pretty good job, really. So
thanks for your service.
Yeah.
I
And
always say that, I always mean it.
you what?
I always say that, and I always mean it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. What was your area?
I started in the straight-legged infantry and then went to the Ranger battalions. Then after that into the special forces.
Special Forces, really? All right. Good for you, man. Good. All right. Well, welcome all of you to this segment of COS Today. Like I said, this is our In Focus segment. So, Jonathan, I'm going to start with you. Tell us, I know in preparation for this this evening, I know that the turning point and the chapters, so forth in Indiana. Well, I won't get into it. What's on your mind? Let me just say that. What's got your interest?
I would say for me, most of all, just trying to empower students in Indiana to carry forward Charlie's legacy. That's the biggest thing that's on all of our minds. I know that for much of the world, that might be old news because that was back in September. But for those of us at Turning Point and for students, it's still fresh, and we won't be silenced.
Good. Well, I know we were just chatting before we came on here this evening, and we were talking about a couple cases or a couple instances here recently about chapters being denied. Are you running into that a lot?
Yeah, a fair amount. One thing that I've observed that's fascinating is I actually see more openness from schools to approve Turning Point chapters since Charlie's assassination than before, which is really interesting. But it's still a problem we run into, especially at private schools.
More so at private schools, really?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, public schools, it's taxpayer dollars. We have a constitutional right to free speech on those schools. They technically need to approve us as long as students go through all the proper channels, whereas a private school has a lot more agency as to whether or not they can approve or deny a chapter.
Oh, I never thought about that. That's interesting. Yeah, good. Well, when we get into your presentation, we've got some other questions for you.
Sounds good.
So where are you located now?
I am on the west side of Indianapolis, born and raised.
All right. Okay. And what schools have you been to this past? Well, what schools are you going to this week? Let me ask that.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Well, I'm meeting with a lead that wants to start a chapter at Ivy Tech Hamilton County. I've got chapters that are doing watch parties for the State of the Union address at Huntington University and Purdue and others. And then I'm working with chapters at Purdue, IU Indy, IU Bloomington, all over to prepare events for this semester. So lots going on.
Good for you. This is a full-time job for you?
It is full-time.
Wow. All right. Good for you. Good. All right. Let me jump down to Michael. Michael, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm becoming concerned about Trump taking some risks that could, in terms of military action that could, result in larger conflicts, it's a little frustrating because, since 2015, he's been talking about keeping us out of the forever wars, and I felt in his first term he did a fantastic job on that. I felt that he really kept the promise, but this term, with what he's done in Venezuela, the drug boats, and then the invasion there, the bombing in Iran, what looks like could be more military action in Iran, and then I'm not clear. I mean, I tried to follow this Mexico thing, but I didn't. I heard someone imply that we were involved, but then it sounded like we weren't. So I'm not clear on whether we were involved, but I'm guessing we at least were a catalyst, for what the Mexican military did, taking out that drug cartel leader. So I'm just concerned. I'm concerned that he's putting us at risk. He's breaking campaign promises, I feel, and at the same time putting us at risk for one of these greater conflicts.
I know I would agree with you. I think a campaign promise about keeping us out of wars. I don't think I think he's doing that so far.
Well, yeah, but the 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 problem is the risk. The
Right.
problem is the risk, right? So the point is that, bombing Iran, there's risk that it could turn into a regional war, right? I mean, what did we hear? Iran said that if we do bomb them, didn't they say they're going to bomb our bases in the Middle East?
They've been
And then,
they've been saying that though for 30 years.
well, yeah, but we haven't bombed them.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
we've amassed all this artillery, and it sounds like we're very likely to take action.
mhm.
So that's that's what I'm concerned about. This morning, I caught part of Bannon's show, and he had Sam Faddis. I think he's a retired CIA guy, and he was framing this thing in Mexico like we're already in it. We're already in it. Basically like we got to finish the job. I'm like, what? I mean, it was ridiculous. So that's what I'm concerned about. It's the
Yeah.
risk that these things could escalate easily. You can't control them completely.
I'm not sure about Mexico either, Michael. But I think when I look at Iran, I think based on the way that the strike on the nuclear plants was carried out, I think if they have the surgical strategic striking power to knock out really whatever Iran could retaliate with. I think the way I look at it is, I think there's risk in any time you get involved with strikes like this, but I look at it as an opportunity to really get rid of that regime once and for all. We've been struggling. I mean, nobody's been able to do that in the past, and I think it also will, timing wise, is good based on the fact that Russia is weak. I mean, they've been involved with Ukraine. They've lost military men and just, I mean, I think Russia's in a weakened position, and who knows, China. I think it's if he can pull it off, I think it would be one of those things that would be history changing. But I agree with you. It's a bit of a risk. I just think it's less of a risk than anything else we've tried in the past. That's just my point of it, or my view.
No, I understand, but he didn't run on that, right?
No,
I mean, he ran on the opposite. So I mean, whether we judge retrospectively that whether we feel personally it's a good idea or not, he didn't run on it, and it is breaking a promise in my mind, and it's putting us at risk. I mean, a lot of people, the whole criticism of, well, this isn't America first. A lot of people feel that it's none of our business. We don't have any. A lot of people feel that we would be doing it just for Israel, and that shouldn't be our concern. So. For multiple reasons, I feel, I'm really concerned about it.
Uh-huh.
I want to jump in a little, and I share your concern as well. But my question is, well, first one comment about whether or not he did say he wanted to keep us out of wars and so forth. But if things change, I understand that it's possible for a presidency to have to change or to feel like they had to change. And I'm curious if you think that the risk of doing nothing is less than the risk of attempting something.
Well, I haven't. I dug into the details of what was going on in Iran after the first strike, and so I haven't really thought about it in months, but what I'm remembering back then was that Iran really wasn't there really wasn't a great risk that they were going to develop nuclear weapons. I thought the UN was confident it was doing their inspections and that Iran was complying, and they didn't feel that they were close to enriching uranium to the degree that's required to develop a weapon. So I felt that, and Trump was trying to negotiate, as I recall, Trump was trying to negotiate with Iran, and he looked shell-shocked after Israel had their bombing campaign. He looked shell-shocked, he looked shaken by it. And initially, I remember they were talking about he was frustrated because they were doing this negotiation, and Israel shouldn't have done that. And then later on, retrospectively, he started claiming that he was in on it and he knew they were going to do it. So, so I didn't feel back then, based upon what I was hearing, was that there was a great risk. I just heard Israel saying, like they've been saying for 30, 40 years, they're weeks from having a nuclear weapon. But with no evidence. They presented no evidence of this at all.
Got a couple of comments I want to throw in, Dale, that based on this discussion. First one is actually, I've got 3 comments I want to put up. First one is from a viewer. Her name is Judith, and she says, "No concern here." That was her first comment. Her second comment was, "Trump supporter and happy to see drug trafficking ending, which provides stability." And then the last comment was from our friend David Nally, who says, "I don't believe anything the UN says."
Right. Well, the issue with drug trafficking is we want to keep drugs out of the U.S. Right.
Right.
So we could put our energies into just keeping drugs out of the U.S. I mean, that's how and I'm a Trump supporter. I voted for Trump 3 times.
Like I said, I agree with you. I think everybody has concerns. I think the Middle East is just such a tinderbox that as Cordell referenced, I think things have changed a little bit, and I do see it as an opportunity, even if the buildup of this time finally gets Iran's regime to act differently, which I don't have a whole lot of trust in. I think they'll push it at the very end. I think they look at, well, if we push it forward another 3 years, then Trump is gone, and we've survived again. That's the feeling I think I get from Iran. But if he's able to, with just the buildup, make some changes there, if the people finally can get rid of that regime, would love to see it. So
but then what happens?
Just my 2 cents. And I think like I said, I share your concern.
No, I understand, but then what happens? Right?
What, when the people take over?
well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
how we can't be guaranteed that
No.
and are we going to go and manage it for the next 20 years?
No. I think Trump.
Point, right?
Yeah, I think Trump has been clear on that. He doesn't want to get in and manage it, just like he doesn't want to manage Venezuela either.
Right. So
but I think you got to give the people. I think you got to give the people that opportunity.
Well, one of my takes here is, from what I can gather, the Iranian regime has killed about 16,000 protesters from what I've seen most recently. I think the people there are ready for the thing, and it's not that I'm not concerned, because having 2 carrier groups there is a big deal. But I think that kind of follows the walk softly and carry a big stick method as well, especially since Trump's already demonstrated that he will take action if necessary. And it's the sort of a problem where there's a lot of firepower there, but a bluff, if you've never held the cards, is never successful. So it's not that I agree or disagree. I'm also concerned, but I do think that it's been an oppressive regime for a long time. When I joined the military, they were holding American hostages, and so this has been a thing for a long time, and it's this same regime. And I think they're just horribly oppressive.
Right, but
I want to continue this, but I want to ask Jonathan. Jonathan, does this kind of issue come up in any Turning Point chapter? I mean, is this the type of issues discussed at Turning Point?
It does. And oftentimes when international issues come up like this, and whether or not America should intervene, what the policy should be from the top, what I hear from a lot of students is that they really do want to focus on America first. They recognize that the American government's duty is first and foremost to address the issues we have here, like our border and like drugs coming through. And I mean, of course, some of these international issues do relate to that. But overwhelmingly, what I hear from students, both conservative and liberal and in between, that come up to our tables, that dialogue with chapters, that are talking in chapter meetings, is that that generally the lean is much more in favor of, America pulling out of a lot of these foreign affairs and just focusing on America first and not meddling in other nations.
Mm.
Got one more comment here I want to put up, Jail. We're getting lots of comments on this subject. So
yeah, we are.
Our friend at Restore First Principle says that's the same fear as not employing an Article 5 convention. Maybe afraid of a maybe versus a known process.
Well,
see what you started here, Michael.
Well, I want to respond to Cordell because he made the point that the Iranian people, they've killed 16,000 protesters and the Iranian people are ready. Trump didn't run on saying, well, we want to help people who are oppressed around the world, right? And wherever, if there's a dictatorship around the world and people rise up, we want to go in and protect them. That's our goal. He didn't say that. The sole purpose for our initial bombing of Iran was to prevent them from getting nuclear weapons.
Right.
I mean, that was the sole purpose. That was the stated purpose, right? It wasn't regime change. It had nothing to do with how they were treating their people. So this is sort of like it's to say like that should be the goal now. It's totally changing the goalposts and the purpose and the strategy. It has nothing to do with what he ran on. Do you see my point?
I see your point, but I want to back up just a little bit from there as well. Part of the agreement that Iran had was that they wouldn't process nuclear materials at all. That was the initial agreement. And then that was modified under the Obama administration to allow them to do peaceful research. And then the UN themselves said that their capabilities have expanded. They've at least brought in equipment so that they could do more than just experimental or peaceful nuclear work. And so the implication there is if they're bringing the equipment in, more diffusers, whatever it was, I don't recall what they brought in. It's almost one of those where there's smoke, there's fire things. And again, I don't fault the president for thinking he might have to pivot. I understand your point, and it's a big thing. No, there's no doubt about it.
Okay. All right. Good.
I want to talk to Mike about Mexico just because I find that one way more interesting.
And I know very little about this Mexico situation, quite honestly. I'll be honest with you. So if you got some insight on that, share it with us.
So this is not betraying any confidences that I have anywhere, but I do know that the U.S. military has so not the CIA, U.S. military has had intelligence teams in Mexico trying to understand the infrastructure there of the cartels. And I was a part of that many years ago. And I've been out of the military now for 22 years, but 23 years ago, I was still receiving briefings on the cartels and what the cartels were doing there. Now, at that time, I know I was receiving briefings. I don't believe at that time we had human assets from the military in Mexico, but I'm certain that we have had human intelligence from the military there in Mexico for many months. So it's it's a big problem and a very violent problem. So that's not me saying I support it one way or another, but I do know that the military has had intelligence assets on the ground, and looking at the cartels. So earlier you had said something to the effect that it might have been prodded, or don't remember your words, by the U.S. military. And that wouldn't surprise me in some ways, simply because when you put a military asset somewhere, it's like, to somebody with a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Jonathan, were you trying to say something on this? Or?
I did have a thought. I was just curious, and I don't know if you all have looked into this, but I don't know a lot about the situation in Mexico either. But what I have heard is that allegedly there are some individuals from the Mexican government or Mexican military that have somehow possibly been involved. Some individuals believe in some of the protests against ICE, that they've somehow been involved with that. And I almost wonder if there's any connection there, if that's a coincidence, or if part of America's military having a presence in Mexico is a response to them sending some of their people here and potentially causing disruption in what ICE is trying to do. Have any of you heard anything about that, or any idea if that might be connected?
No,
No.
haven't heard anything on that.
I don't know about cartel ICE connection and that sort of thing. Wouldn't surprise me in some ways, but the cartels have a pretty extensive network in the United States, a very extensive network to protect their interests, which is the expansion and the continuation of the drug trade. Not only drugs, but I don't know if you know it. You can look it up. It's super interesting. But the cartel owns most of the avocado trade in Mexico as well. They've expanded into a lot of what appear to be legitimate things, or were legitimate prior to the cartel taking them over, because they absolutely control Mexico when it comes to drug trafficking and so forth. But the cartels, their concern isn't drugs, it's money. And so they've expanded into a lot of things. They have a lot of influence in the U.S.
Cordell, what is meant by intelligence assets on the ground? What does that involve, or what can that involve?
So there's two forms of intelligence: SIGINT and HUMINT. SIGINT intelligence is just signal intelligence. That's just electronics, eavesdropping, that sort of thing. HUMINT is human intelligence, meaning people on the ground. And when it comes to the military, the human intelligence is the special forces. And so
Okay.
I know that it's pretty well understood worldwide that you look at any conflict, and before that America has been involved with, and prior to the conflict, the U.S. military has been there in some sort of an advisory role. And so you can look it up, and you have to look for it. But the military's intelligence arms have been in Mexico coordinating and their intelligence gathering on the cartels themselves.
Now, am I right that we've determined these, or classified these cartels as, what's the term?
Terrorists.
Huh? Terrorists. Right. Now, does that legally in the United States, then does that give us the authority to place intelligence assets?
To be honest, I don't know, but in my experience, usually what happens is the host nation approves human intelligence from the military.
Okay.
I've done that myself personally in a number of countries back, when I was a younger man. And in those instances, we were there at the request or with the consent of the host nation. As I understand it, in my limited capacity, is prior to Venezuela and Maduro, the president of Mexico was not as malleable as they are now when it comes to human intelligence.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
I have a question for Jonathan.
Oh, okay.
I have a lot of respect for Charlie Kirk. I thought he's tremendous. And one of the things, I don't know that we can replace him, and I appreciate all of the work that TPUSA is doing, but how do you not control, but how do you manage your members so that they listen rather than respond? That was one of the things that Charlie Kirk was able to do to a great extent, was listen.
Yeah, my observation, I'm incredibly impressed by the students that I've seen on campuses. I mean, we teach them to table, much like what you see Charlie doing, where he's engaging with students that are coming up to the mic. Students across Indiana and across the country are doing something very similar, albeit on a smaller scale, not usually with a mic. But I've been very impressed to see students have an incredible amount of patience and composure and being very articulate and really good at honestly asking questions and listening more than talking sometimes. And really the approach that I often take and have observed students use with much success is challenge those liberal students or students that may come up and challenge ideas, get them to defend their own idea, ask them challenging questions, get them thinking about why they believe what they believe, rather than just parroting a narrative they may have heard from their professors or the news. And so honestly, I'm very happy to report that I think students are doing an incredible job at that.
I'm curious. I listen to a lot of Charlie Kirk's videos a ton, and I'm curious if I don't recall if that's how he framed it, liberal versus conservative. And I'm curious if he called people who were less than supportive, if he referred to them as a group as liberal.
Yeah, at times. I think it would just depend on when it is relevant, because he debated all sorts of people. He debated fellow conservatives on an individual topic he disagreed on. Sometimes he would debate people on a religious or spiritual topic. He was a Protestant. Sometimes he would debate a Catholic, or other things like that. Sometimes debate someone who's not necessarily a liberal. But he would at times use the word liberal or leftist when talking about the category, or particularly talking about the ideas that are being taught and that students are learning. But he addressed every student as a unique individual in addressing whatever question they brought to him.
I'm involved in our state at the state level. I'm state leader for the veterans here, and one of the challenges. I'm relatively new. I'd been in an Article 5 organization before I came to Convention of States, and I do this full time as well as a volunteer, no pay or whatever. But one of the challenges that I see being a new person here is trying to get people within Convention of States to frame things as either supporters or non-supporters. And I see people. So in the state of Idaho, we have three things that we're nationwide, three amendments we want: fiscal responsibility, term limits, and then get federal government less involved in state issues.
All very turning point friendly policies.
Right, they are. Well, we have roughly in Idaho, 86% of Idahoans support those three measures. But I frequently see people within on the right specifically more so, but within our organization, framing it as left versus right, or conservative versus liberal, when that isn't the case, because if you 86% support, that means worst case, 50% of the conservatives support it and 36% of the liberals, if you frame it that way, still support it. So one of my challenges is to get people to speak as reference people as either supporters or non-supporters, because as soon as you say, well, the liberals, blah blah blah, or the left or the Democrats, you're alienating in our particular mission 36% possibly of the supporters that you have. So I was wondering about your framing, how that works for you.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and that the focus should absolutely be on talking about ideas. And Charlie was all about that, not just because identity politics, which is frequently used by the left, and sometimes, to your point, by the right as well. Oftentimes people can dismiss an argument or dismiss an idea or a person because of the labels they have associated with them. So I think getting down to the actual ideas we're talking about, breaking them down, getting into the details, is so important for the flourishing of our country. And that's absolutely at Turning Point USA what we try to encourage students to do. I mean, we are a 501c3 organization, and so that means we do not formally endorse parties or candidates. And so I'm always training my chapters, my students, to really emphasize discussing principles with their peers. And when people do come up, I don't pitch, and I don't encourage students to pitch our club as, hey, come join our conservative organization. No, We are a club on campus that is talking about the Constitution, about the importance of free speech, of free markets. Come join us wherever your political views are, or if you're not sure, come, learn, ask questions, have conversations. So that's what we emphasize. That's what we lead with at our Turning Point chapters.
All right, guys, we gotta move on here because our time's running out. Ken, what's on your mind, Ken?
Yeah, being that we have Jonathan on tonight, I'm going to stick with the focus of Turning Point. It's going to be more specific and just kind of try and get an answer on a specific question that I have, and that happens to do with our university in Valparaiso, a private institution. Recently turned down a chapter there, and from what I understand, I guess my question leads, Jonathan, towards the fact that from what I've researched, Valparaiso receives state funds in the form of grants and some other things. Wouldn't that make them either to, if they've got other groups on campus, either to oust them or to let Turning Point join because they are state funded or have some state funds?
Unfortunately, not necessarily. Pretty much every private school has state funds. I mean, I think that Hillsdale and Cedar Grove? I'm trying to remember. There's a couple schools in the country that don't receive any federal funding. And so even private schools often do. And I'm not entirely sure what the details, the nitty gritty of the laws are, but it's really only fully public schools like Purdue or IU Bloomington where free speech is fully protected. Private schools like Valparaiso, it is a Lutheran school, so it's religious. And, especially religious schools have a lot of agency to say, hey, we maybe don't want other religious groups on campus. What's curious about it to me is that I know Valparaiso did have a Turning Point chapter approved by the school a few years ago, back in 2022. And then just, it fizzled out, the chapter died. And then more recently, a new group of students has tried starting back up. And this time the school said, no, we're not going to allow it. So I'm honestly, because that's no longer in my territory with the way our organization's lines are drawn in the field. So I'm not sure what all the details of that are, but they do unfortunately have a right to do that. So we can apply public pressure. We can, decry it. And I know even our wonderful Lieutenant Governor, Micah, has called them out on it, but we'll see if anything comes of that.
I don't know. Maybe it's possible. Maybe there was an administration change in between.
That could be.
I'd be curious to find out if it was the same administration, then they just kind of doubled back on it, on their decision there, which would be interesting. I would like to see then in case of that, I'd like to see a bunch of the local high schools that surround or in the Valparaiso University area. I'd love to see a bunch of chapters pop up there so they have at least some recognition and some pushback, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Did Valparaiso give you a reason or did they just say no?
I'm not sure. Like I said, since I don't oversee that school directly anymore, I'd have to ask.
Now, Jonathan, there is another person in your organization that deals strictly with high school chapters. Yep. Am I right?
That is true. Yeah. So, and there are several other reps like myself across the country that oversee all of America's colleges. And then there's also field reps around the country that oversee our high school chapters. That program is called Club America. And so my colleague, Kyle Matern, he's the one who oversees all of the high school or Club America chapters in Indiana, or most of them, I should say.
We ought to try
have to get him on, Dale.
Yeah, we
should.
Get him
He's
on
great.
Too. I think you probably can. You give me his name and contact information, email or text it to me if you would, please.
Yeah, I'll do that.
You maybe have done that before, but
I might have.
I would like to reach out to him. And where is he based?
He's also based in Indianapolis.
Okay.
I know he's from Carmel. I think he lives on the east side currently.
Does he? Okay.
I'd love to get him on. Obviously, I think we should focus on Club America deeply as well, because as much as our education system has been literally destroyed and overtaken over the last few decades, I'd love to see the revival of American students, and part of that is watching the protests we're seeing at these local high schools. They only see one side of the issue, and I'm sure, I'm pretty positive. I'd be willing to bet my volunteer pay stub that's being influenced by our teacher associations and many of our liberal teachers in schools. So
Yeah.
we really would like to teach them how to debate.
Absolutely. Well, we got friends in high places. I don't know if you all have heard, but I believe that our state government in Indiana, particularly our governor, Mike Braun, is hoping to encourage chapters at every college and high school in Indiana. So we should be hearing more about that in the next few weeks.
Good. Okay.
Ken, I just had a quick question for Ken. What is Club America? Did I miss
High school
something?
chapter for Turning Point.
Oh, for Turning. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, high school. Well, we're going to move on here and wrap up this segment. But my topic, and Michael, you might want to chime in on this, but my topic deals with the Supreme Court decision on tariffs. And every time this tariff issue comes up, it gets confusing for me. And I was in a conversation with my son yesterday evening. And he said, "Dad, what do you think about Trump's tariffs and how that impact? Isn't that a tax on and increased prices?" And and it got me thinking about it all again. And I think we have to. We've talked about this on COS Today. We've done some presentations on tariffs. I think what you have to understand with tariffs is you have to understand the whole program that Trump is trying to do, the whole program. And yes, there could be some price increases involved, but there's a lot of other things involved in this whole program that hopefully in time are going to produce a lot of good things for our country. But in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of confusion and a lot of questions, I think. Michael, have you pursued that particular topic at all?
Not at great depth, but I, when Trump brought up the tariffs, he made the point that, look, we don't have free trade because these other countries are imposing tariffs on our goods.
Right.
And I agree with that. And Obama said the same thing. I mean, Obama said the same thing. He said when he ran in 2008, he said the exact same thing. He said, I believe in free trade, but not one-sided free trade. And he was going to, he talked about renegotiating all of our trade deals, which he never did. Right. But I agree with the principle. These foreign countries are getting mad at us, but they're the ones that have the tariffs that they're imposing on our goods. Right.
Right.
Why isn't there a response? Well, we'll get rid of our own tariffs on your goods, right? So, in principle, I haven't studied the issue in depth and run numbers or anything, but the general principle makes logical sense to me.
I think it's a tempest in the teapot at this moment, and I'll tell you why. The Supreme Court, their decision was very narrow, very limited. It said that the Trump administration couldn't use the emergency powers for tariffs. So Trump has already said he's just going to switch to a different set of powers, because that's not the only reason the only authority, and this is emergency powers. I think he uses emergency powers, waiting for a challenge, and now there's been a challenge. He's been told he can't use them anymore, and I believe he'll just pivot to other powers.
And I think he had Plan B in his back pocket all along.
Wow.
I think so too.
Well,
I think the only reason we hear about it is because there are those who love to, hate President Trump, and so here's an opportunity to do that, and so it's in the media, and kind of the next thing will be, he's going against the Supreme Court decision, which I don't necessarily think is what's going to happen, but that's how it will be characterized.
Okay.
I'm just going to go ahead and throw another comment up, Dale. We have a lot of them coming in tonight. And this has to do with what I would call having a little patience with what Trump has put in place. And our friend Judith there says that increased manufacturing and business startups will take a little time. And I think sometimes we got to give that some time. I'm sure the midterms, they want to squash this in the midterms, but it is going to take a little time.
Well, and that's part of the whole program. That's part of the whole program. reshoring manufacturing, I think, is a term I've heard said. Bringing manufacturing back to this country. So, yeah. All right. Any other comments, Ken, before we leave this segment?
Well, we had a couple of interesting ones. Let's see. I need to go back to a little ways back. We had one here from David, which was interesting. He says if we would have hit Iran years ago, Hamas would never have attacked Israel. And he also said that where was that? Oh, he also mentioned, I think the problem we should be worried about is the Islamization of the West. A couple of interesting comments, I thought.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, once again, a great segment. This in focus segment has turned out to be very, very entertaining and educational, I think. So, Cordell, Jonathan, Michael, thank you very much. Cordell, you can take off now. Michael and Jonathan, hang on here because we're going to bring you back on very soon. So,
nice meeting you, Cordell.
Thank you. Nice meeting you, Mike. John.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you very much. I'll be bringing you back on very shortly here.
Yeah. Thanks for his service too. I wanted to get that in. Get it in time. Yep.
Another good segment, Ken, on In Focus segment, I tell you.
Believe so.
Getting some good comments tonight too, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we well, there's a number of nerves to be struck, and I'm sure we hit one or two.
You think so, huh?
I think so. I thought appreciate Michael for being able to throw up the issue and play both sides of this, because it is very complicated, and you could have a little bit of faith on one side and a little bit of doubt on the other, and I think we all worry about it, as Americans. My position too is anytime we can get any type of solvency in the Middle East is actually helping Americans, to a degree. I mean, at least we're not dumping boatloads of cash over there in Iran. I thought that was just a great idea.
Well, okay. If he promises not to stir things up again, we're going to. But I think he'll probably do it anyway. But
that's all right. That's okay.
We're going to bring Michael back on. He's going to talk to us about. Well, let me bring him back on here. Hey, glad you stuck around there, Michael. Michael, we're going to hopefully talk about a completely different topic now. You want to talk about chatbots, right?
Yeah.
And learning through using those. Am I correct? Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, and the inspiration for this came from my own experience. So I've always been if you've heard the term autodidact. My entire life I've tried to teach myself things, and I always found that I learned better if I taught myself, a new topic. And actually, just as an interesting anecdote, as a kid, I was always envious of families that could afford an encyclopedia set. So when I got my first job after college, once I accumulated money in the bank, I ran out and I bought a used World Book encyclopedia set. But here's my point. I've been doing this all my life, and I've taught myself how to learn. I intuitively now understand how to learn, and I have a process. And when these chatbots emerged, it just accelerates the learning incredibly. And I thought, I've taken on complex subjects, like during COVID, I really want to understand like these mRNA vaccines. So I ended up spending probably 35 hours researching the mRNA vaccines and how they work, right? Okay. When chatbots emerged, I realized I could have cut that probably down to 18 hours, from 35 to 18, because they're so helpful. So I put together this talk. The goal is to try to inspire people, if they're not inclined to try to teach themselves. And I don't mean looking something up. I mean, something that would take 10, 20 hours, maybe longer over time,
Now I'm a ChatGPT user, but it's been solely from the standpoint of looking something up or, getting some information on a particular topic.
Right.
I have not done what I think you're trying to teach us about tonight here. So
Yeah. So I call these, this is about taking on a more complex learning project.
okay.
And my hope is to inspire people to see like, wow, I really could do this. Right. So
And this could be done. This could be done with any chatbot. I mean,
pretty much. I mean, I haven't looked at all of them, but the ones that I've looked at are Claude, Grok, and ChatGPT, and it can be. They're all great. I actually like Claude a lot. I use
my
ChatGPT more.
grandson uses Claude. My
Does he?
grandson,
Wow.
yeah.
I've been using one called Perspective too, and I like Perspective.
Do you? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So there's so many of them. I'm going to mention just some of the. I assume most of them have the same features that I'm going to talk about. But
Okay. All right.
You want me to
take it away? Take it away.
Okay.
You're gonna bring up a PowerPoint for us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have to?
I got it.
All right.
I got it.
You can see it?
Yep.
Okay. So Dale, just tell me when the time. I can't see the clock on my computer now that I'm full screen. So if
don't worry about it.
Just give me a hint here.
Yeah.
So okay. So the title here, it's how to teach yourself anything using AI chatbots. And the topics I'm going to run through, I want to talk very briefly. I want to give a working definition of learning, so we have some common ground for talking about this. Number two, then I'll get into the self-directed learning process. So I've basically taken this idea of teaching yourself something and broken it down into 7 steps. There's a 7-step process. Then I'll give people a brief overview of chatbots, but I want to especially share some things that are really relevant and helpful in teaching yourself things. And then I'll close just by briefly walking through that 7-step process again, and just showing people a list of things you can do at each step with the chatbot to accelerate your learning. So starting off with learning. So just a simple definition of learning. This is how I think about it. If you think about learning, at any moment, each of us has a sort of a fixed current base of knowledge in our minds. And learning it's simply integrating new knowledge into that current base of knowledge. It's that simple. So you want to take something new and integrate it, right? You literally think about it as integrating knowledge. And I'll come back to this definition at a later point in the talk. So that's what we're talking about here. What can you do to teach yourself new things? Well, you want to acquire knowledge and then integrate it. So the self-directed learning process. When you teach yourself new things, there are really 7 steps that you go through. So the first thing you do is you obviously, the idea of teaching yourself something, you have a goal, right? The idea emerges and you naturally have a goal. It's implicit, like, wow, I'd like to understand this. And then what you essentially have to do is map out a path. And I'm going to get into each step in more detail. I want to give you an overview now, but the next step is to basically, given my goal, let me map out a path that I'll follow to learn this new thing. The next step is you have to gather information, right, about the topic you're learning. This is where the chatbots come in really handy, and I'll talk more about that. But this is like the step where it really starts to kick in, when you start to gather information for the new thing you want to learn. You do have to vet the information, and so information literacy is part of this. So there's a vetting process, and I'll talk more about that. This step, once you gather information, you have to really dig in and start to work and labor to understand it. This is what we do at school. So if you think about it, at school, the teacher is really setting the goal. The student isn't. They're laying out the path. They give you a syllabus, they give you a textbook, they have their own PowerPoint notes. You're not gathering the information. They're gathering the information through their own research and relying on a textbook and other sources. They vet the information, or the textbook author vets the information. That's where we come in as students. We come in and we start to understand it. We're given all this information. We have to understand it. So if you look at just so far, when you're teaching yourself something, you're doing all these steps rather than a teacher. That's already helping you to deepen your learning. The next step is you have to structure the knowledge. So put it into some kind of structure. and then you go through that process of integrating. So I just said a moment ago, a definition of learning is integrating new knowledge. So that's the final step. You're taking what you've learned, you're structuring it, and then you're integrating it. So let me go through these steps in a little more depth so people really understand where I'm coming from. So setting a goal. The goal emerges from within you, and it's usually personal. Usually have like personal or practical reasons to learn. And research has shown, learning theory and research shows that this means when the goal comes from within and you have a personal practical reason to learn something, your motivation is really high and you're more effective at learning. Usually it has immediate application. And one of the great things is you're hyper customizing your path to learning and what you're studying. So you're not getting into things that you don't need. So it makes the learning really efficient and directly applicable. Nothing is wasted, in other words, right? So all taken collectively, this means your motivation is high. The next thing you have to do is map out a path. What do I mean by that? Well, this really involves you're essentially writing down what you already know about the topic, writing down what you don't know. That's number two. And then you essentially synthesize these two things into a structure, right? So you'll have like a structure, like an outline, and it'll include things you know something about, other things you know nothing about. That becomes like your outline for what you're going to learn. That's what I call a learning path. And what you're going to find is as you start to learn, dig in and do research and gather information, start to understand it, that outline is going to continuously change. You're going to keep revising it, right? So that outline essentially becomes your way of tracking and documenting and synthesizing what you're learning, that learning path outline. Then you start to gather information. This basically means going out on the internet and getting information. And pulling it together. I have some tips here. You want to maintain sort of an exploratory open attitude. It helps from a learning theory standpoint if you gather information in different modalities like text, video, audio, graphics. So don't forget, for example, YouTube, right? You can learn things from YouTube. And then you want to sort of pull that information together and start to write it out and organize it. You want to work with it. You vet the information, which means you assess the validity of the information and the relevance. So when you start gathering information, you're going to find things aren't relevant and you can just toss them aside. And there are things you want to use your judgment and make sure you cross-check if there's something you think might not be right that you've gathered, that it's incorrect or it's misinformation. You want to do a little research just to vet it. To understand the information, this is where you do, as I said, you do all the work to deeply understand the information you've gathered. So this is when you, here's a key point here. You want to judge the level of expertise you need. When I was studying, for example, the COVID vaccines, one of the things I studied was the immune system. I realized the immune system, when you start to get into it, is very complex. And there was a lot of detail, and I could have gotten into, really deep scientific technical detail. And I realized I didn't need to understand how the vaccines work. So I kept my knowledge of the immune system at more of a conceptual level. So these are things you start to do to customize your understanding, and you don't want to go deeper than you have to in order to understand whatever you're trying to learn.
Michael, is it possible at any step along the way here that you may decide, well, my goal was not reasonable, I'm going to go back and revise my goal, I'm going to go back and change and go a different path, or that is that kind of inherent that's possible to do that, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's part of it. This is an iterative process when you teach yourself something. And that's really, Dale, that's the power of it. The more you grapple with the information and work with it and revise it, right? The more you internalize it. That's actually part of the learning process. So believe it or not, the vetting of the information and the grappling to understand it, things will change, and they should change. You want them to change a lot, actually.
Yeah, okay.
And in the end, that's when you really know you understand something deeply, if it really evolves. So the process for understanding is you want to gather information from multiple sources, synthesize the information, identify subtopics you don't understand, do further research. You want to test your understanding with an expert. I used to actually, on some topics, I'd go out and find real people to, and I won't bore you with the details, but I became a burden with some people. I'll say that. But the amazing thing with these chatbots, which I'll get into, is they become the subject matter expert. It's amazing. So you don't have to go find other people, and you can talk to them all night if you want to learn something. So they're always at your disposal. Right?
Are you gonna talk about trusting the chatbot? Trusting.
Well, that's sort of what if you look at the fourth step, vet, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I was getting at. So, people talk about, well, a risk with chatbots is you get misinformation or they can be biased. That's true. That doesn't mean we shouldn't use them, right? They're so powerful, especially studying something like vaccines or science, right? It's so powerful. So yes, you have to use your judgment, right? I wouldn't assume everything's incorrect or that everything's correct, but pick your shots. And if there are things that you're wondering about, you think are questionable, go out to other sources and validate. So there is a judgment call here. Yeah.
Because in my limited exposure to Chat GPT, I mean, I think I can tell it to give me a conservative point of view or give me a liberal point of view or give me this point of view or that point of view. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah. You'll still find that there are some biases. I mean, you might ask it to give me a conservative point of view, but it might give you all these caveats and then present the liberal point of view without any question, right? But that's true for for political topics, right? If the topic is political or if there's a political aspect to it, that
Yeah.
becomes an issue. But you just work through it and do your best. It's a judgment call.
All right.
Structuring the information. The reason you want to structure it, I talked about starting off. That second step, creating a path to learning. And I said that essentially becomes the structure or the outline. Like think of it as a table of contents in a textbook. Okay. The reason you want to structure information is because that's how the brain organizes information and knowledge, right? So I use it organizes information or knowledge into structured patterns. So these are all different words for the same idea: schemas, patterns, relationships, structures, constructs, models, frameworks, right? So that's one of the reasons you want to structure the information. It makes it easier in the end to integrate it because it's in a form that the brain can more easily absorb because the brain likes structured knowledge. Okay. So that's a critical step. Part of the point here is if you start at the learning path with that structure and evolve it throughout, when you get to this step, you're pretty much done. There isn't a lot of work left to do if you keep updating that structure. And then so here's an example. It's like a textbook outline, right? So when I say structure it, have an outline, major section, subsection, detail, section B, subsection, detail, right? So you want to structure it like a table of contents or a paper outline.
Okay.
And then the final step is you integrate the knowledge, right? And because we've already organized our new knowledge into a structure as the brain does, we now integrate that new knowledge structure into our minds. And the way we do it is what you're basically doing is finding some other structure that's related, right? And sort of connecting it to that. So to give you a quick example, I talked about when I wanted to learn how mRNA vaccines worked. I knew how traditional vaccines work. So there's an example. When I went to integrate all that new knowledge about mRNA vaccines, I basically had in my mind vaccines, right? And it used to be just my information about how vaccines worked was the traditional type, right? So what I did was I took that vaccines category in my mind and I split it between the two types of vaccines, traditional and mRNA. And that became sort of like the node where I integrated my outline, right, about the mRNA vaccine. So I connect it to another structure in my mind, and that's easy to do if you've defined the goal and you have a real personal motivation for doing it, right? If you have a personal motivation for wanting to learn something new, there's going to be an easily accessible structure in your mind you can connect it to.
Yep.
Um, and I have found that it's easier to, in terms of integrating that outline, to integrate the major headings first, so you have the structure in place, and then it's easier to fill in the details in terms of like memorizing it and internalizing it.
Okay.
This is a tip when you struggle over and over to write the outline. The payoff often comes. So you'll struggle and struggle. The payoff often comes the next day because overnight when you sleep, the neuron connections are solidified in your mind, in your brain. So you'll find the next day it's much easier to continue where you left off.
You know, that's true. That is true.
Yeah.
That has Ken, have you experienced this? I mean,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
you struggle with something and you sleep on it, and the next morning, bingo.
I think it has something to do with the regenerative process throughout the evening. And if you sleep well, you will. I find I wake up and a lot of times I have the answer I was looking for.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm saying like it's also validated through learning theory and brain research. The neural pathways actually are like solidified in your brain that connect everything. So that's why the next day it's easier to continue and take the final step of really solidifying it.
Yeah.
So it's a real thing. How much time do I have, Dale? I want to move.
Oh, you got about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's fine. So the part of the point here is that I'm kind of done with the learning part. I want to get into the chatbot part, but part of the point here is once you internalize something, once you integrate it, right? I said learning is integrating new knowledge. Over time, from that point forward, you'll continue to make connections between the elements of that knowledge and other areas of information and knowledge in your brain, right? So there's this long-term process of deeper and deeper integration of the knowledge. That will happen as you apply the knowledge and use it, or you'll just notice things over time, notice connections. But the point is, once you internalize that outline, over time it'll start to connect to other things, and it becomes more embedded or integrated into your mind. You learn at a deeper level. In other words, you connect it to other areas of knowledge. So chatbots, I had a lot about this, but I had to cut it down. It was a little too complex for the short talk. But basically, people probably know this. The way chatbots work is you have a user. They're submitting a question to a chatbot. The chatbot sends the question to the large language model. The large language model sends the response back, and the user reads it on the screen through the chatbot. So that just so people have a firm mental model for that.
And it does it awful fast too.
Yeah,
I'm amazed at how quick it is.
Now, these chatbots, I assume people are familiar with this, but they have a dialogue space where I've posed the question, "Where's the love?" which was supposed to be a joke. It responds here, and then I can ask another follow-up question here. So this is the dialogue.
Right.
What I wanted to show people, a lot of people don't know this, but this is ChatGPT. Grok has this feature, and Claude does. I'm sure most of them do, but you see over in this left column, it says new project. I'm trying to use my cursor. See where my cursor is? It says new project.
Right.
Yeah.
Most of these chatbots have a feature called project. So you can have just one-off chats, or you can create a project. And all you do is, I didn't want to toggle to the internet here. I'd lose time, but this is a screenshot, so I can't open it up. But if you click on that new project, it's going to allow you to name a project. And what that allows you to do is to save multiple chats under that heading. And it's a really helpful way to manage a learning project, right? So you say, go back to my example, mRNA vaccines. I could create a project called mRNA vaccines. Then I could have separate chats filed underneath that project, one on vaccinology, one on viruses, one on protein synthesis, one on immunology, right? So it's really helpful. And the chatbot, from a memory standpoint, because all those chats are saved under a project name, it connects them all. So if you go back into a previous chat, right, it's connecting what you're talking about in that previous chat to all the information in all the other chats. So it becomes this big integrative discussion, and the chatbot has a more comprehensive view of what you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
So I just remember that projects feature. It's really helpful if you're studying a new topic. to
Okay.
use that. So that's the big thing. These ChatGPT has something called a canvas. I forget if I haven't tried it in the other ones, but basically, if you look at this is a canvas, right? These are two views of the canvas. But what it basically does is you can say to the chatbot, say you're in the middle of a chat, you can say, look, I'd like to create a canvas on these things we just discussed. What it does is it pulls that information into sort of like a separate document that you can both edit. The chatbot can edit it and you can edit it. And then you can ask it to turn it into a Word file and you can download it. So that's
Okay.
the
Okay.
canvas can be a helpful feature, especially if you're downloading.
Haven't used that. Haven't used that. Okay.
The other thing you have to remember is, they have general memory that the chatbot applies to all of your chats. It has chat specific memory. So if you're in an isolated chat, it applies memory to that chat, that if it's a long chat. And then I mentioned the projects, right? This third point here is that it has memory related to the projects, like a specific project.
Right.
Just want to move quickly here. A large language model, Chat GPT, actually, I said, give me a metaphor for a large language model. What's it like? A simple way to understand it. And it said, it's like autocomplete on steroids. And it's a great example. So when you're typing a text message, right, you type the first letter of a word and it gives you 3 suggestions.
Right.
And you can select one. That's really what a chatbot is doing. What your phone is doing in that moment is calculating the next likely word given everything you've been saying, right? That's the exact same thing a chatbot is doing, or a large language model. It's not thinking. It's literally using statistical memories of each word and how each word relates to like every other word. Okay, and given the context within you're talking about something, right? So like talking about bank in terms of a financial institution versus a river bank, right? It learns the context and then it starts predicting the next likely word that would come in its response, given the historical context of your conversation. So that's how it's working. It's just that the model for the large language model to calculate the next word is far more complex than autocomplete. It's exponentially more complex. I'll skip this. Another key point here is when you do these projects with the chatbot, the more you converse with it, the more information you tell it, the better it becomes at aligning. This is a term that I developed. I call it cognitive alignment. So after a while, the chatbots can become really effective at mirroring your cognitive perspective, your viewpoint on the learning project. And it can be amazing because it starts making suggestions for how you should change your outline, for example. I mean, it's almost like its mind is merging with yours and it becomes extremely helpful. So the point here is that the more information you can give it up front when you start a project, the more quickly you'll accelerate through this process and get the chatbot to that state of cognitive alignment where it's mirroring your mind and it can be far more effective. This just quickly, the way to think about the chatbot roles, like how it can help you in learning. On the lowest level here, it can be a tool. Then it can be at the next level, it's like an assistant. Then it becomes like a work colleague, literally. So it can help you at all those levels. So as a tool, it can be a file system or give you a canvas. It can give you these tools to use, right? It could be an assistant, so it can fetch information for you, add edits, summarize, or output the information for you to download. Or it can be a collaborator where it's explaining, teaching things, providing examples, providing context, providing alternative ways of looking at something. It can quiz you, it can react to your explanations, it can validate that you understand something clearly. So
it can get personal. It can get personal with you. Amazing. It is.
Well,
Yep.
that leads me to my question. I don't want to interrupt Michael's
Sure.
finish here, but I've seen so many of these commercials for like Google Gemini where you actually, it's like a person you talk with all day long, and they just converse with you back and forth. And one of our viewers, David, now put up. He said, "I call the chat out when it's biased." So my question, Michael, is: do you ever argue with your chatbot, and does it argue with you, or does it just ignore you?
It does, yeah, and that's something I do it all the time. I basically talk to it like it's a person, and that's the best way to do it.
Mhm.
And I don't There's a difference between anthropomorphizing it and developing a like everyone talks about how that's a risk, right? Developing a relationship with it, and starting to believe it's a person, right? You don't want to do that, right? But you can talk to it like it's a person, and it's really, you can argue it. I've gotten the chatbots to change their viewpoint when I've argued effectively.
Really?
You really, oh yeah, you have to know, how to argue it, right? But you can move its perspective in your direction,
I've argued a lot with Alexa, but she always just kind of ignores me after a while.
Yeah. Now the mobile app of Chat GPT, you can actually talk to it, and it'll talk to you back.
That's like Gemini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I have not.
Don't have it on the desktop version yet.
Yeah.
At least I don't.
I don't like to use that personally. It's a personal thing. I just prefer to type. But I'll just zip through the final part. Do you want me to?
Got about a minute left here.
Okay. So using chatbots in the process. So this is like tying it all together. How can you use them to be effective learning? In the goal, you discuss the goal, refine the goal, accelerate to cognitive alignment. So early on, you want to accelerate to that cognitive alignment. Give it a lot of information about what you're trying to learn. Your learning path, you can have it review your learning path as you go, give feedback on your path, make suggestions. It can, huge benefit. It can gather all this information for you and put it together for you. It can organize it. It can find sources for you online to validate things. It can summarize information, put it in an outline form. So in terms of like gathering information, that's when its value really starts to kick in. You can vet information by discussing the validity of information, asking it to prove things or get links to sources that it drew the information from, so you can check it. It can provide the pros and cons of using a source. It can provide counter arguments discussing whether certain information is relevant to the learning goal. This is also where the value really kicks in terms of understanding. So this is where it becomes like a tutor. I view these chatbots as personal tutors. This is where I just have long conversations with it about the thing I'm trying to understand, and it's extremely helpful. Like I gave that example of, give me a metaphor. I'm still struggling with large language models, and it said, well, it's like autocomplete on steroids, right? That's an example of like, wow, that it all clicked. I got it. So it can help you structure the information. It can give you feedback on the structure, provide critical evaluation of your outline, suggest refinements, and then it can help you integrate that step when you've got it all outlined. Now you want to like drill it into your mind so it's permanently there, right? It can help you with exercises, quizzes, essays to complete, and then it will evaluate them and criticize them, tell you where you're wrong. Extended discussions with you about the subject to help you integrate it. It can help you relate the topic to other topics that you might know more about to help you, sort of anchor it on that other topic. Discuss current events. So there's all kinds of ways. So that's the bottom line here. You basically got a path to follow based on learning theory, right, to optimize your learning. And then you're integrating the use of the chatbot throughout to accelerate learning and deepen learning.
All right.
That's the bottom line.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hey, good info.
All right.
Good job. Good job, Michael. This has been very interesting, and I plan to use this a lot more. This tool.
Do you really?
Get better at it, quite honestly. So,
Michael, I know this. I need to put up another comment, and this is in reference to the In Focus segment, so it's not about what we're talking about here. But I felt I
let's
needed.
Let's don't get him off on that now.
No.
We lost everyone on this segment, right?
Yeah. No,
dropped off.
This was just a comment from Restore First Principles. He says he might not agree with everything that you had to say, but he absolutely respected your right to get on the air and make your viewpoints known. Good on you, sir. I just had to go ahead and put his comment in.
Thanks.
That's one of our. He's one of our contributors.
Okay. Wow.
He's a good guy. Good guy. Michael, thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity.
I'd like to bring you back and talk about this some more.
Okay.
And we are going to have you back in March to talk about a completely different topic. I think.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But we'll wait till then. So, Michael, thank you very much. Have a good
All right,
evening.
likewise. All right, thank you.
Night, Mike.
Very interesting, Ken. Very interesting.
Oh yeah, and it's amazing where all this is going, and how just how fast and how useful it is. There's so many of them now, and again, I'm seeing some of these packages now where you actually can package Claude and ChatGPT, and you can get 2 or 3 in a package to kind of work with them all. But very interesting. Very interesting.
Well, let me bring Jonathan on.
Yes.
And let's talk about Turning Point and see what he has to say. Jonathan, thanks for hanging on. I saw you in the lobby there. Did you pick up on what Michael was talking about?
Yeah. No, I actually use ChatGPT quite a bit myself, more than I would like to admit. And it's both helpful for generating ideas for my work with Turning Point, as well as a lot of personal things. I'm an avid birder and gardener, and I cook, and I'm also not naturally very much of a handyman. So all sorts of things that I'll use ChatGPT for to try to help me learn. And I've even used the projects feature he described. So
yeah. Good,
Nice.
Good deal. Okay, Jonathan, you're our Turning Point guy. So tell us all about Turning Point. What's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if I may, I'll just give briefly for those listening in that maybe didn't hear earlier, just more background as to who I am.
Okay.
But like I said before, of course, my name is Jonathan. I am the Hoosier Territory College Field Representative for Turning Point. So I oversee most of the college chapters in Indiana. And I wanted to just reiterate that because we do have reps around the country, and we do have, in addition to the college program, the Club America program with high schools. And then we also have Turning Point Faith, where reps are empowering churches and faith leaders to, promote conservative values. And then we even have Turning Point Academy that's working to develop curriculum and start C3 schools. That's classical Christian conservative. And then also we have Turning Point Action, which is a separate organization, 501c4. So they actually are concerned with electing, good conservative candidates. So
can you open chapters in churches then? You
not personally, but as an organization, yes, we do have a Turning Point.
As an organization,
yes.
There's someone else that would handle that, but that can be done, right? Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
When did that start? When did that start, Jonathan?
I believe in 2020, in response to COVID and the mask mandates that many churches were going along with.
I didn't know it was that it had been around that long. I hadn't heard of it, so it's interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yes.
Yeah. So Turning Point is a large ecosystem, and just trying to paint that picture because sometimes people get confused too. So just kind of helps you see where I fit in as well. I'm specifically working with college chapters in Indiana.
Okay. All right. So how many chapters do we have in Indiana in colleges?
It's about 30 right now. And I know you had asked about this previously, but originally we actually had only about 12 chapters in the Hoosier Territory, which is most of Indiana, except a little bit of the northern part of the state, and before September 10th. And then after Charlie's assassination, we just got flooded with students wanting to get involved. And I don't know if you heard about some of the numbers nationally, but just for a little bit of context, if I may, we normally get about 20 or 30 students going on our national website at turningpointusa.com and filling out the Get Involved form. And they're interested in either starting or joining a chapter. So that's nationally a day, about 20 or 30 students. Within the first 24 hours following Charlie's assassination, we had over 5,000 students fill out that form. And over the course of the next few weeks, that number inflated to over 200,000 students. In my territory alone, the Hoosier Territory, we had over 1,000 students fill out that form in Indeed.
Now these are students that are interested in starting a chapter.
Yeah, starting or joining a chapter.
Or joining a chapter.
Yeah,
oh,
so
okay.
it just, and so it isn't necessarily, like in the case of Indiana, there's not 1,000 colleges, of course. So these are students from various campuses. Several of them, for instance, were from IU Bloomington. And so I connected them with that established chapter. But many of them were at schools where we don't have a presence at all. And previously, because I've been working for Turning Point for a little over 3 years. And historically, it takes a lot of effort to go to some of these campuses and to find those students that are actually willing to get involved and to be a leader on their school. But in the wake of what happened with Charlie, they were coming to us faster than we could keep up with. At the day of what happened, I had my phone blow up in a constant state of new texts and calls, even from students I hadn't heard from in a long time, that said, I support you, but I'm not sure if I'm willing to put myself out there. And they were all coming back to me and saying, I want to get involved. Like, this has emboldened me. This has invigorated me. And for several weeks, I was in a state of more unanswered, like the calls and the texts were coming in faster than I could answer them.
Wow.
So you personally answer all the calls. You don't have anybody else helping you with that, Jonathan?
For most of Indiana, it's just me for the colleges.
Wow. Busy guy.
Yeah, it's a full-time job, like I said.
You certainly do need ChatGPT, let me tell you.
Yeah, no, I've used it quite a bit to say, okay, how can I save some time or do these processes more efficiently and things like that.
Yeah.
So has it dropped off, or how many are you getting? How many inquiries are you getting a week now, or however you measure that?
It's slowed down a little bit. I like to say we're at more of a normal level of crazy now. So I haven't looked lately to see what the rate is, but I might maybe got like 6 or 8 within the last week students reach out. So in Indiana, so slightly more normal right now. It's still a steady trickle of new students every single week, but not quite the swell that we had, immediately after September 10th. It was just like everybody who wanted to get involved all signed up at once. And so then it just took, and the students that signed up in a matter of a few days, it took me many weeks to reach out to them all.
What do you think? What are some of the driving forces behind this interest? Was it strictly Charlie's death, or what did that trigger? I guess is what I'm trying to get at here.
Right. Yeah. That was truly the catalyst. I think from my conversations with many of these students, many of them were, pretty much all of them were students who were already conservative, who already shared our values, but really weren't either interested or willing to put themselves out there. Maybe they felt that it was too risky, that it could affect their grades, that they might have a hard time getting a career in their field, especially if they're in education and they want to be a teacher. Just all these different reasons why students, maybe even they were just too busy or had too many other things going on. But oftentimes just fears surrounding what the consequences of putting themselves out there might be. But I think it unfortunately for many, it's a blessing in disguise, because what is horrible and tragic is what happened, as it was what happened. What the enemy meant for evil, God used for good, I believe. And we saw so many people who otherwise were afraid to put themselves out there, inspired to step out and to use their voice and not be silenced. And I think the reason for that is they saw the courage that Charlie embodied to the end, to preach the truth no matter the cost, even that of his own life. And they thought, who am I to, be worried about a grade or about, one job over another? This is our country that's at stake. If we're not able to have dialogue, free exchange of ideas without it coming to this, how can we have a country? And so I think that's what I'm hearing from students, is that they look at what happened and they basically thought, this is the last straw. I'm done hiding. I'm done coming up with excuses. I'm going to put myself out there.
Great.
I guess that is a real thing. Quite honestly, how is this going to affect my grades? How am I going to be looked at? How am I going to be
Right.
judged? What am I going to be thought of? I guess this is a uh, those are true concerns. I guess you know we say in Convention of States that we're trying to save the country.
Right.
We're using the Constitution to save the Constitution
Yes.
to save the country.
And
Is
here's a
that
button. Like, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but keep it constitutional.
okay?
One of our buttons there.
I mean, is it looked upon that way in Turning Point that you're trying to save the country?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You think I should know it by heart. We've had a variety of slogans that we've used, in different times in the organization, and I know we've talked a lot about the culture wars and fighting those. But I'm trying to see if I can find. Here we go. In my signature block in my email, we are doing the work to save America. That's what it says below every single Turning Point employee's signature block in our email.
Mm-hmm.
We are doing the work to save America.
Yeah.
Now, you're a nonprofit, 501c3, right? So you rely on donations.
This is true.
As an organization.
Yeah.
Now, are you a paid employee?
I am full time.
Okay. I assume most of the volunteers are not paid, right?
Right. So students, whether that's college or high school chapter leaders, those would be the volunteers. And then those of us reps who are overseeing them, helping give them the resources they need, we're the full-time employees.
Okay. Very, very much like COS. Ken earns a lot of money.
But, yeah.
No,
and with all of Dale's money, that's where you found all those donuts and coffee in the green room down there. Because his Social Security check just doesn't cover it all.
We're all volunteers, or all strictly volunteers. Well, so what's your plans then for 2026? What kind of goals do you have set for yourself for Indiana?
Yeah, we've got a lot of big things coming. As I think I briefly mentioned earlier, and I'm not sure how much of this has actually been announced yet, but I do believe our governor is making plans to partner with us as an organization, and we've seen this from other states as well, just out of a desire to help start.
That helps. You got the governor and the
Right.
lieutenant governor both on your side, don't you?
Yes, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Micah previous to his lieutenant governor bid, and he was very involved with Turning Point Faith, actually. So his church that he pastors, Life Church, is a Turning Point Faith chapter. And he is very supportive of the students. And that's actually one of the things we have coming up. I'll run through briefly some of what we have in store this semester, just in terms of specific events for anyone listening that might be. And I should probably preface with this, while obviously my focus is on college campuses. And so I'm helping students who are already conservative at their chapters bring in speakers that, we can then try to, whether that's an outside prove me wrong style event like we saw Charlie do, or that's an indoor speaking event. We're trying to bring students who don't necessarily share our views in the hopes that they'll come ask questions and that hearts and minds are changed. That's ultimately the goal. And so, but with those events, they are generally open to community members as well to attend in most cases. So I know this semester we do have Kayvon, who is a conservative comedian. He'll be speaking at Purdue on March 11th. And then Micah Beckwith himself will be speaking at Indiana Wesleyan on the 24th of March. And then we will have Shane Winnings talk about biblical manhood. And he will be doing, he'll actually be doing more of a prove me wrong style event. So it'll probably be a variety of topics, but he will be debating students outside on the Memorial Mall at Purdue on March 25th. And then we got a lot of events at Purdue this semester. Alex Stein will be there doing the same on April 1st. And then details to come, but be on the lookout for an event with Chloe Cole in Indianapolis. That will also be a Prove Me Wrong style event. So just be on the lookout for details for that. And then April 25th, I'm pretty sure will be the date. Several of my chapters have come together. These students are amazing with the initiative they have and the motivation they have, but they are planning a statewide dinner for all of the college and high school chapters in the state to come together to be recognized for their hard work. And this will be an event for which there are tickets available for community members as well.
I was wondering if you were going to have any kind of a statewide gathering like that. I think that would be great.
Yeah, so that'll most likely be April 25th. So feel free to pencil that in your calendar. Evening dinner event. It'll be really big. But those details are yet to come. So for anybody listening that wants to be up to date on these events and hear details and know where they can RSVP, all of that, I recommend following the TPUSA Hoosier Instagram. This is one that I manage, actually. I'll just show it on the screen. It's somewhat crude here, but there you can see TPUSA Hoosier, TPUSA _Hoosier. If you just type that in on Instagram, this is honestly the best way to keep track of all these events and know when they're happening, because it'll all be posted there.
I was gonna have you email me, Jonathan, events coming up in from April on, so that I could put them in. We could get them into our newsletter, but obviously I can get those that information off of your
perfect
site there
on the screen. Yeah. Yep,
I got it right there. TPUSA _Hoosier.
Perfect.
We'll get the information off that. I'll get that included in our newsletter, which is the Finish Line that comes out bi-monthly. So it'll be out in April, May. So we like to keep people posted as to what's happening with
Jonathan, do you want to give a phone number for yourself, or is
no, absolutely. I do pass out my business card like candy, I will say. So anybody is welcome to reach out to me. My email is just my first name and last name, Jonathan.Bontrager @tpusa.com. So again, for those watching, you see my first and last name on the screen, just Jonathan.Bontrager @tpusa.com. And yes, you are also more than welcome to give me a call or shoot me a text at 317-801-2685. And
012685.
That is correct. Yeah, so anybody is welcome, whether you yourself are a college or high school student. If you're high school, I'll connect you with Kyle. If you're college, I'll connect you directly with the chapter or school in question. If you are interested in getting involved with Turning Point Faith, I can connect you to the right person as well. You are also more than welcome, that's my number. Feel free to shoot me a text. And if we have any listeners from elsewhere or that are interested in getting involved in a different capacity or have different questions, you can also just go to tpusa.com/get involved and fill out that form.
Okay. Well, this is very, very, very informative, Jonathan. And have I missed anything? Is there anything else where that you want to say that we're missing here?
I guess I'm trying to think how to best put it succinctly, but it's been really, and I kind of touched on this a moment ago, but it's been really cool to see how Charlie Kirk's legacy has been honored over the last few months. I think one detail I didn't specifically mention is that immediately after the shock and tragedy of September 10th, there were students at chapters across the state and of course across the country that gathered by the hundreds and even thousands to come together to honor his legacy, to pray, to sing songs, to just honor his legacy at these vigils. And I think we had over 1,000 students at Purdue and nearly that much at IU Bloomington, and Ball State had a couple hundred students, even though they hadn't even had a campus event yet. So that was really incredible to see. And as much, I also want to add this, as much as the violence and the frankly evil that we see among many on the left in response to what happened, as great as that is, my observation has been that even liberal students or even students who don't necessarily share all of our values are really do more often than not, majority of the students I interact with on campuses are desiring free speech. And that's the number one thing we're advocating for on these campuses is less so our highest concern, let me put it this way, as much as I want everybody to be conservative and share those values, our highest concern is for free speech to be protected and to thrive in our country, for us to still be able to have dialogue, to learn from each other, and to be able to talk to each other without resorting to violence. And I even have, here's another really good button we have. And we table with these buttons and stickers on campus.
Okay.
Stop censoring words, start embracing debate. That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
And that's what Charlie was all about. So that's something that I'm privileged to be promoting on campuses and see firsthand. But my observation is that students of all political persuasions, more often than not, that's what they want as well. So I truly believe we are seeing a revival of that, and just praying that it continues.
We were at a national conference, a Convention of States national conference, shortly after Charlie's assassination, and that was one of the major topics at the conference. And Ken and I interviewed various people there. Micah Beckwith was one of them.
Awesome.
And as well as others. And one of the questions we had was, would the momentum from Charlie Kirk's assassination, would that momentum help us in our cause with the Convention of States to get more states on board?
Mm-hmm.
And so I certainly at that point in time, this was in September, so the momentum was very strong at that
Right.
point in time. So my question to you now is the momentum still there? Has it died off, or is it still has it settled at a is it still strong? I guess.
No, it's absolutely still strong, and I don't think it's increasing at quite the rapid rate we saw immediately after the events of September 10th, which makes sense. But
Right.
we still have just a huge swell of chapters, college and high school. Just to kind of give you a snapshot into that, we are growing as an organization. We have expanded more regions, more territories. We're hiring more field representatives currently. And anybody listening who might be interested, tpusa.com/careers. All these open positions are a sign that we are still thriving, still growing. And I actually think it's really funny too, because I've encountered a lot of haters on social media and comments and whatnot of people saying, oh, like Turning Point USA is, going to die now, die with Charlie and this sort of thing. And it's like, couldn't be further from the truth. We, as someone who's on the inside, it's like, no, we are growing. The momentum's not going anywhere. And as for Convention of States in particular, I mean, as I've said previously, Turning Point is all about limited government. And I think that this is a topic that needs, more education is needed. A lot of students don't know about it. And so if, either of you or anyone with Convention of States wants to speak at a college chapter, I'll definitely be talking with my students about that. And I think that would be a great topic for a chapter meeting.
Good. Great. Very good. Well, Ken, any other comments for Jonathan that we need to?
Let's see. Well, we did have just a couple. These go back a ways, but we will put up a couple of these talking about how positive. It's so positive to see and hear a younger viewpoint. What some of the things we've talked about, Dale and I have talked about many times on our program over the years is we're a bunch of old guys and a few younger women. But one of our goals as we were in middle of 2025 and going into 2026 was to bring on more younger people and get them more involved, not only on the program, but to get them involved in Convention of States as well. And so we back when things were working through the Turning Point, tragedy there, we made it a point to try and reach out to Turning Point to say, hey, if you've got events in Indiana that you need people to show up, you need us older Convention of States people would be happy to show up. We have booths and things that we attend year round, but we'd be happy to share our people with Turning Point anytime they could use us. So it was something that we talked about, and again, one of our goals at our strategy meetings was to basically grow the younger generation, because let's face it, some of us, we're up there, and in order to keep this going and growing, even though now that we're at 20 states and things are moving along a little quicker, some of us might not be here when it comes to 38 to 34 states. So we want the youth to be involved in ours as well. So it was kind of we saw it as kind of a joint cooperation, effort. So that's kind of
and I want to chime in on this too, Jonathan, that if you know of anyone in any of the chapters throughout your connections, anyone that would like to come on like you've done tonight and be on our program, we would love to have them.
Okay.
As you know, Macy Gannell,
Right. Yes.
has been on as a guest a couple
Awesome.
times, and excellent person.
She's amazing.
Yes, and so if you know any other Macy's, anyone that you think would enjoy doing this, I would very much like to connect with them and invite them on to be in the In Focus segment like you were tonight, to make a presentation, whatever they would like to do. But if nothing else, join in on the In Focus segment. So
yeah, I'll definitely connect you with a couple. I've already got a few in mind.
Good. And like Ken said, we need young people. We need young people to more and more in our organization. So, all right, Jonathan, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Likewise.
We've been looking forward to having you on, and we hope that our organization and Turning Point will do more together, because I think we're on the same page.
Absolutely.
All right. Jonathan, thank you. Have a good evening.
Of course. God bless.
Good night.
Thank you. Very good, Ken. Very good.
Nice young man, and brought a lot of positive information concerning some of the questions we've had. Is it still going? Is it strong? And what are the numbers he's putting out there? I think it's a good sign, and it's the positive information we want to hear. I mean, a lot of times, all we have to talk about is the bad things, and as he said, the evil sometimes that's happening in our country. But there's a lot of good, and as he said, I think what I picked up on was, God's using the evil out there and turning it into good, and I think that's the overall view you have to take, is that sometimes it takes that to bring about the change and the goodness that's still out there. I'm still amazed. I think I mentioned to you, I was at two opposite ends of the state this weekend. One up, not too, just a little south of Chicago, and the other one down in Louisville. And I observe as I do some of the things that I do for my own video business. I noticed in both places that I had to shoot video this past weekend, people, and again, all different races. This is black, white, Asian, whatever it is. People opening doors for other people. People stopping, and nodding, saying hi. That good old American feeling that you don't know the person, but you feel connected in a way because we're living in the same place. And I specifically watched that this weekend because I had some time while waiting and setting up and what have you, to just watch the amount of people, young and old, holding open a door for somebody, letting somebody else go first. It happens. And unfortunately, we don't see that. The media shows us none of this. All they want to show us is the hate. And the hate is what the media is basically propagating out there. And that division, we can't fall for it. That division is what they want. And I bring that up because I personally recognized and looked out for that this weekend and found it in both places that I was. And again, both ends of the state and up near Chicago. So, I mean, it wasn't like, not like felt like I had to wear an armor plate, breastplate up there, it was
Good.
friendly. Yeah.
Great.
So
All right.
just thought I'd mention that.
All right. Good. Well, we've got a Dave's Daily Dose
Yes, we
for
do.
us tonight. A little change in direction here, and Dave is going to talk to us about the SAVE Act. That's something that's been in the news here very recently. So
I'm surprised that wasn't a topic tonight, but with that, we always
yeah,
have this week, right? You know.
yeah, I could have mentioned that one too.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see what Dave has to say here.
Do the Democrats in charge know something they're not telling us? I think that's pretty much the case with anyone large and in charge in the public eye. We're only getting the part of the story that will work for their narrative, whoever they are. But even this one is tough to buy. The SAVE Act now has 50 sponsors, I guess. Susan Collins has decided to support. But why, except for Fetterman, are all Senate Democrats rock solid against allowing people to prove they are citizens of the nation before they can vote? What do they know? This is Dave's Daily Dose on BrokenRoadRadio.com. I'm David Allen Punt. Females in the country don't seem to be buying the notion that it will cause millions of them to be tossed off the voter rolls because they haven't been able to figure out their correct last name or how to change it if necessary. Most modern females by this time know the steps to take. That the SAVE Act is somehow the reincarnation of a legal reconstruction effort to keep former slaves from the voting booth doesn't seem to be catching on. Wasn't it Democrats who wrote the Jim Crow laws back in the day? The tale that now the Republicans are writing the update seems far-fetched. Maybe if all the Democrats started chanting Jim Crow 2.0, it must go, it will take hold. After the Civil War, former slaves got themselves elected to public office, but by the end of the Reconstruction era, Wikipedia tells me that white Democrats regained political power, leading to 10 of the 11 former Confederate states to form new constitutions or amend the old ones, inventing things like a special tax to vote and literacy tests to write the letter X on a ballot. The last of the special rules weren't wiped out until the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Is it possible that some deep investigation has revealed that there are people voting who aren't supposed to? And the SAVE Act would stop that practice in its tracks? Why does anybody assume that those people, without pictures of themselves, are voting Democrat? From the whining and complaining, ranting and raving, that's what it looks like. I'm David Allen Punt.
Another good one.
Yep, another good one. Why these people are voting against the SAVE Act? I don't understand it. I just don't.
It's totally against common sense, as we've talked about that many times.
That's turned out to be one of those 80-20 issues across the country.
I'd say it's probably closer to 90-10.
I think that is just strictly Trump derangement syndrome reaction, I think.
I'd agree.
I don't know.
Yep, I'd agree.
All right, Ken, let's start wrapping things up here. For those viewers, if you want to see a recording of our broadcast, or if you want to see a live broadcast, the easiest way is to find our YouTube channel, American Patriots for Convention of States. And I think, Ken, you're going to post a link in the chat on that for that.
It's already there. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So go to our YouTube channel, American Patriots for Convention of States. And I think if you click on the menu selection called Live, I think you'll be able to see our live broadcast as well as past broadcasts. So that's how you find us. If you have any questions or comments about tonight's broadcast, drop us an email at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Ken, based on the number of comments, we've had some very interested viewers tonight. It looks to me like.
Yeah, it was quite varied and quite energetic tonight. So yes, it was.
Very good. Very good. Well, Ken, I think that's going to be a wrap for us. We'll, unless any other comments or anything from our viewers that we need to address.
No, I think we've got everything in that we needed to get in tonight. As far as comments were concerned, I think we addressed everything that we needed to get in there.
All right. Well, folks, thank you for tuning in tonight. I think, hope you've been enjoyed our broadcast. I think we've had a very good one tonight. Very interesting. A lot of good topics. Very interesting content tonight. So, Ken, these broadcasts are getting longer and longer, aren't they? We're at another hour and 55 minutes here.
I think our in focus segment is expanding right in front of us. Yeah.
Yes. That's okay. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. Okay, folks, that's it for us tonight. We'll let Marengo Mike close us out. Everyone have a good evening. Thank you.
Marengo Mike here with a reminder of the importance of this year as we continue to grow the grassroots army of volunteers and the mission of using the Constitution to fix the ills of our government. Use the QR code if you haven't signed the petition and consider using your talents to become an active volunteer.